Kybalion. Introduction. We take great pleasure in presenting to the attention of students and investigators of the secret doctrines this little work based upon the world-old Hermetic teachings. There's been so little written upon this subject, notwithstanding the countless references to the teachings in the many works upon occultism that may earnest searchers after the arcane truths will doubtless welcome the appearance of this present volume. The purpose of this work is not the enunciation of any special philosophy or doctrine, but rather is to give to the students a statement of truth that will serve to reconcile the many bits of occult knowledge that may have acquired, but which are apparently opposed to each other, and which often serve to discourage and disgust the beginner in the study. Our intent is not to erect a new temple of knowledge, but rather to place in the hands of the student a master key, with which he may open the many inner doors of the temple of mystery through the main portals he has already entered. There is no portion of the occult teachings possessed by the world which have been so closely guarded as the fragments of the Hermetic teachings which have come down to us over the tens of centuries which have elapsed since the lifetimes of its great founder, Hermes Trismegistus, the scribe of the gods, who dwelt in old Egypt in the days when the present race of men was in its infancy, contemporary with Abraham, and if legends be true, an instructor of the venerable sage Hermes was, and is, the great central sun of occultism, whose rays have served to illumine the countless teachings which have promulgated since his time. All fundamental and basic teachings embedded in the esoteric teachings of every race may be traced back to Hermes. Even the most ancient teachings of India undoubtedly have their roots in the original Hermetic teachings. From the land of the Ganges, many advanced occultists wandered to the land of Egypt and sought to the feet of the master. From him, they obtained the master key, which explained and reconciled their divergent views. Thus the secret doctrine was firmly established. From other lands also came the learned ones, all of whom regarded Hermes as the master of masters, and his influence was so great that in spite of the many wanderings from the path on the part of the centuries of teachers in these different lands, there may still be found a certain basic resemblance and correspondence which underlies the many often quite divergent theories entertained and taught by occultists of these different lands today. The student of comparative religions will be able to perceive the influence of the Hermetic teachings in every religion worthy of the name, now known to man, whether it be a dead religion or one in full vigor in our own times. There is also a certain correspondence in spite of the contradictory features, and the Hermetic teachings act as the great reconciler. The life work of Hermes seems to have been a direction of planting the great seed truth, which has grown and blossomed in so many strange forms, rather than to establish a school of philosophy which would dominate the world's thought. But nevertheless, the original truths taught by him have been kept intact in their original purity by a few men each age, who, refusing by great numbers of half-developed students and followers, followed the Hermetic custom and reserved their truths for the few who were ready to comprehend and master it. From lip to ear, the truth has been handed down among the few. There have always been a few initiates in each generation in the various lands of the earth, who kept alive the sacred flame of the Hermetic teachings, and such have always been willing to use their lamps to relight the lesser lamps in the outside world. When the lighter truth grew dim and clouded by reason of neglect, and when the wicks became clogged with foreign matter, there were always a few to tend faithfully to the altar of truth, upon which was kept alight the perpetual lamp of wisdom. These men devoted their lives to the labor of love, which the poet has so well stated in his lines. Oh, let not the flame die out, cherished age after age, in its dark cavern, in its holy temples cherished, fed by pure ministries of love. Let not the flame die out. These men have never sought popular approval, nor numbers of followers. They are indifferent to these things, for they know how few there are in each generation who are ready for the truth. or who would recognize it if it were presented to them. They reserved the strong meat for men, while others furnished the milk for babes. They reserve the pearls of wisdom for the few elect who recognize their value and who wear them on their crowns instead of casting them before the materialistic vulgar swine who would trample them in the mud and mix them with their disgusting mental food. But still these men have never forgotten or overlooked the original teachings of Hermes regarding the passions honor the words of the truth to those ready to receive it, which teachings is stated in the Kybalion as follows. Where fall the footsteps of the master, the ears of those ready for his teachings wide open. And again, when the ears of the student are ready to hear, then cometh the lips to fill them with wisdom. But their customary attitude has always been strictly in accordance with the other Hermetic aphorisms. Also in the Kybalion, the lips of wisdom are closed except to the ears of understanding. There are those who have criticized this attitude of the Hermetists and who have claimed that they did not manifest the proper spirit in the policy of seclusion and reticence. But a moment's glance back over the pages of history will show the wisdom of the masters who knew the folly of attempting to teach to the world that which it was neither ready or willing to receive. The Hermetists have never sought to be martyrs and have, instead, sat silently aside with a pitying smile on their closed lips while the heathen raged noisily about them. In their customary amusement of putting to death and torture the honest but misguided enthusiasts who imagined that they could force upon a race of barbarians the truth capable of being understood only by the elect who have advanced along the path. And the spirit of persecution has not yet died out in the land. There are certain Hermetic teachings which, if publicly promulgated, would bring down upon the teachers a great cry of scorn and revilement from the multitude, who would again raise the cry of "Crucify, crucify." In this little work, we have endeavored to give you an idea of the fundamental teachings of the Kybalion, striving to give you the working principles, leaving you to apply them yourself. Rather than attempting to work out the teachings in detail, if you are a true student, you will be able to work out and apply these principles. If not, then you must develop yourself into one, for otherwise the Hermetic teachings will be just words, words, words to you. Chapter 1. The Hermetic Philosophy. The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding. The Kybalion. From old Egypt have come the fundamental esoteric and occult teachings which have so strongly influenced the philosophies of the races, nations, peoples for several thousands of years. Egypt, home of the pyramids and the Sphinx, was the birthplace of the hidden wisdom of the mystic teachings. From her secret doctrine all nations have borrowed. India, Persia, Chaldea, Media, China, Japan, Assyria, ancient Greece, Rome, and other ancient countries partook liberally at the feast of the knowledge of the Hierophants and the masters of the land of Isis, so freely provided for those who came prepared to partake of the great store of occult mystic lore, which the masterminds of the ancient land had gathered together. In ancient Egypt dwelt the great adepts and masters who have never been surpassed and who seldom have been equaled during the centuries that have taken their processional flight since the days of the great Hermes. In Egypt was located the great lodge of the lodges of the mystics. At the door of her temples entered the neophytes who afterward, as hierophants, adepts, and masters, traveled to the four corners of the earth, carrying with them the precious knowledge which they were ready, anxious, and willing to pass on to those who were ready to receive the same. All students of the cult recognized the debt they owed to these venerable masters of the ancient land. But among these great masters of ancient Egypt, there once dwelt one who was held the master called the Master of Masters. This man, if man indeed he was, in Egypt in the earliest days, he was known as Hermes Trismegistus. He was the father of the occult wisdom, the founder of astrology, the discoverer of alchemy. The details of his life story are lost to history, owing to the lapse of the years, though several of the ancient countries disputed with each other in their claims to honor the having furnished his birthplace. And this 1,000 years ago, the date of his sojourn in Egypt, and that his last incarnation on this planet is not now known, but has been fixed at the early days of the oldest dynasties of Egypt, long before the days of Moses. The best authorities regard him as a contemporary to Abraham, and some of the Jewish traditions go so far to claim Abraham acquired a portion of his mystic knowledge from Hermes himself. As the years roll by after his passing from the plane of life, traditions record that he lived 300 years in the flesh. The Egyptians deified Hermes and made him one of their gods under the name of Thoth. Years after, the people of ancient Greece also made him one of their many gods, calling him Hermes, the god of wisdom. The Egyptians revered his memory for many centuries, yes, tens of centuries, calling him the scribe of the gods and bestowing upon him distinctly the ancient title Trismegistus, which means the thrice great, the great great, the greatest great, etc. In all the ancient lands, the name of Hermes Trismegistus was revered, the name being synonymous with the fount of wisdom. Even to this day, we use the term hermetic in the sense of secret, sealed so that nothing can escape, etc. And this by reason of the fact that the followers of Hermes always observe the principle of secrecy in their teachings. They do not believe in casting pearls before swine, but rather held their teachings milk for babes, meat for strong men, both of which maxims are familiar to the readers of Christian scriptures, but both of whom have been used by Egyptians for centuries before the Christian era. And this policy of careful dissemination of truth has always characterized the Hermetics. Even unto the present day, the Hermetic teachings are found in all lands among all religions, but never identified with any particular country nor with any particular religion sect. This because of the warning of the ancient teachers against allowing the secret doctrines to become crystallized into a creed. The wisdom of this caution is apparent to all students of history. The ancient occultists of India and Persia degenerated and was largely lost owing to the fact that the teachers became priests and so mixed theology with philosophy, and the result being that the occultism in India and Persia has been gradually lost amidst the mass of religious superstitions, cults, creeds, and gods. So it was with ancient Greece and Rome, so it was with the Hermetic teachings of the Gnostics and the early Christians, which were lost at time of Constantine, whose iron hands smothered philosophy with a blanket of theology, losing to the Christian church that which was its very essence and spirit, and causing it to grow throughout several centuries before it found its way back to its ancient faith. The indications apparent to all the careful observers of the 20th century being that the church is now struggling to get back to its ancient mystic teachings. But there were always a few faithful souls who kept alive the flame, tending it carefully, and not allowing its light to become extinguished. And thanks to these staunch hearts and fearless minds, we have the truth still on with us. And it is not found in books to any great extent. It has been passed along from master to student, from initiate to hierophant, from lip to ear. When it was written down at all, its meaning was veiled in the terms of alchemy and astrology, so that only those possessing the key could read it aright. This was made necessary to avoid the persecutions of the theologians of the Middle Ages, who sought the secret doctrines with fire and sword, stake, gibbet, and cross. Even to this day, there will be found but few reliable books on the Hermetic philosophy, although there are countless references to it in many books written on various phases of occultism. And yet, the Hermetic philosophy is the only master key which will open all the doors of the occult teachings. In the early days, there are the compilation of certain basic Hermetic doctrines passed on from teacher to student, which was known as the Kybalion. The exact significance and meaning of the term having been lost for several centuries. This teaching, however, is known to many to whom have descended from mouth to ear, on and on, throughout the centuries. Its precepts have never been written down or printed, so far as we know. It is merely a collection of maxims, axioms, and precepts, which were non-understandable to outsiders, but which were readily understood by students after the axioms, maxims, and precepts had been explained and exemplified by the Hermetic initiates to the neophytes. These teachings were constituted as the basic principles of the art of Hermetic alchemy, which, contrary to general belief, dealt with the mastery of mental forces rather than material elements, the transmutation of one kind of mental vibration into others, instead of in changing of one kind of metal into another. The legends of the Philosopher's Stone, which would turn base metal into gold, was an allegory related to the Hermetic philosophy, readily understood by all students of true Hermeticism. In this little book, of which this is the first lesson. We invite our students to examine into the Hermetic teachings as set forth in the Kybalion, and as explained by ourselves, humble students of the teachings who, while bearing the title of initiates, are still students at the feet of Hermes, the Master. We herein give you many of the maxims, axioms, and precepts of the Kybalion, accompanied by explanations and illustrations which we deem likely to render the teachings more easily comprehensible to the modern student. Particularly as the original text is purposely veiled in obscure terms. The original maxims, axioms, and precepts of the Kybalion are printed herein in italics, the proper credit being given. Our own work is printed in the regular way. In the body of the work, we trust that many of the students to whom we now offer this little work will derive as much benefit from the study of the pages as we have the many have gone before, treading the path of mastery throughout the centuries that have passed since the time of Hermes Trismegistus, the master of masters, the great, in the words of the Kybalion. Wherefore the footsteps of the Master, the ears of those ready for his teachings wide open. Open wide. The Kybalion. When the ears of the student are ready to hear, then come up the lips to fill them with wisdom. The Kybalion. So that according to the teachings, the passage of this book to those ready for the instructions will attract the attention of such as are prepared to receive the teachings, and likewise, when the pupil is ready to receive the truth, then will this little book come to him or her. Such is the law. The Hermetic principle of cause and effect in its aspect of the law of attraction will bring lips to ear together, pupil and book in company. So mote it be.